So first of all, it's great to be here today and to see all of you. And good morning, Andrew. It's great that we are here in the same country.
It's wonderful to be here, Michal, and it's great to see you again. I look forward to the conversation. Perhaps to get us started, it's impossible to ignore the events of October 7th. And now you as CTO of Microsoft Security and leader of the Israeli R&D Center, what perspective do you have on the cyber threat environment since that date?
Sure. Indeed, the October 7th was the worst attack ever on Israel, with more than 1,500 people brutally murdered. And we're still at war with Hamas and Hezbollah, and we still have 120 hostages, including children, women, and even babies held in Gaza. And we should do everything possible to bring them home. Now, regarding cyber is becoming in every war in recent years a very important factor. We saw it in the war in Ukraine, where we watched very closely in Microsoft that every attack, every physical attack was preceded and followed by a cyber attack. And we also see that in the war now, cyber attacks are becoming very, very important. We saw an increase of more than 500% of attacks on Israeli infrastructures, Israeli hospitals and businesses, mostly by Iranian groups. As a matter of fact, the number of Iranian cyber groups that attack Israel increased by a factor of 2 since October 11. Now, the Iranian state crime is not only attacking Israel, is also attacking the rest of the Western world. For example, we saw that for example, attacks against Azure, Microsoft Azure. The number of attacks by Iranian actors has increased by almost 250%.
Thank you. Can you perhaps expand that perspective to more of a global perspective? Like, what are you seeing as CTO now globally in terms of new trends in cyber threats?
So first of all, cybercrime is exploding anti-economy. As a matter of fact, I find it fascinating that if cybercrime would have been a country, it would have been the country with the 3rd largest GDP in the world, followed by following US #1 and China #2. It generates more than $8 trillion in economic loss, which is huge. And if we look at the terms of growth, the rate of growth of cybercrime is the fastest in the world. It grows in 50% year over year, which means that it's twice as much as India, a very fast-growing economy, and 3 times as much as the US and China. So I find it quite incredible.
So perhaps another pivot here. Gen AI, what are you seeing now with the advent of Gen AI? How is that impacting cyber trends and also the cyber threat environment as well?
Yeah. Gen AI is probably the most impactful. By the way, we are just in the beginning of the Gen AI revolution. But if I compare it to other technological revolution that happened in the last even 100 years, it's going to be the most effective one that is going to have the most effect on the world. Let's look at one number which I found fascinating. More than 1 billion. More than 1 billion people have used generative AI or LLM, large language models, or have built generative AI application in the past 18 months alone. This is unprecedented. Even if I'm looking at the revolution of the internet or mobile, of social networks, there were never such a fast adoption. Now, generative AI is very close to my heart. It's very close to my heart because when I was almost 30 years ago, a very young PhD student in Columbia University then was much nicer than it is today. And I was working on my thesis in AI, actually what was called then natural language generation, which is now called generative AI. However, we were in the wrong direction. The approach we took back then was not the right approach for a variety of reasons, but we really failed miserably. And that's one of the reasons I actually didn't finish my PhD and started with the industry. It was actually the right thing for me to do. My parents were happy, but it was the right thing for me. And now I find it like a full closure. What was so theoretical almost 30 years ago is now the reality, is now changing for the world. And now I deal so much with generative AI. So it's really, to me personally, quite an amazing experience. Now let's talk about generative AI and the influence on cybercrime. So generative AI influenced the attackers and also the defenders. Let's start with the attackers. With tools of generative AI, and by the way, the attackers are very technological savvy. They understand technology very well and leverage it to their advantage. So with generative AI tools, it's become much easier to generate malware. And we see a lot of AI-generated malware. Let's take another example, which is deepfake. Now, deepfake is not new. However, in the past, it was used to generate fake news, to embarrass people, to blackmail people, etc. Now, it's generated to commit crime, and serious crime. Let me give you an example. One of the important banks in Hong Kong, they had a video conference call, and the CEO of the bank ordered in that video conference call, ordered one of his employees to urgently transfer $25 million to a certain account, because this is a very important VIP account. It has to be done immediately. And of course, the obedient employee did that. Well, it turned out it wasn't the CEO. It was just a deepfake video impersonating the CEO. And what about the money? The money is long gone. So we saw about the attackers. The good news, it's going to make the defenders, the people that the cybersecurity professionals, and of course cybersecurity vendors, much better. We see that generative AI tools like the Microsoft Security Copilot is already making the security professionals so much more effective, so much more faster, and so much better in responding to cyber threats. And of course, what we develop in Microsoft Security for AI, because we need to, there is a tsunami of generative AI-based application, and they need to be secured. Which brings me, Andrew, to a question I want to ask you. As a VP of the security marketing, you meet so many customers around the world. So maybe you can tell us what you hear from customers about generative AI and Copilot, etc.
Thank you, Michal. The biggest thing that we've seen is an unprecedented level of excitement for generative AI, and specifically for generative AI and its application to security. In fact, we view at Microsoft that generative AI, and specifically Copilot for security, is probably the most important, the most serious use case for generative AI to date. And so, Michal, we've been working with hundreds of customers now through our preview stage, through our early access program, and now into general availability of Copilot for Security. And what we're seeing is that at scale, even experienced cybersecurity professionals are seeing huge improvements in both their speed and in the efficacy of completing security operations tasks. We're also seeing that Copilot for Security is useful for more junior security analysts on the team to learn new skills and to get capabilities that they otherwise didn't have. For instance, they can use Copilot for Security to perhaps reverse engineer a script, an obfuscated script that they wouldn't have been able to do that task before. Or they're able to take natural language and turn it into a query that allows them to query the security environment. What we're seeing broadly is that many security teams, not just at companies, but at public sector organizations, are overwhelmed. It's tough to hire for talent, right? It's tough to hire for great security talent, and it's tough to retain that talent. And so the reason that we're so invested in generative AI is we believe that it provides that extra leverage, that extra leg up for defenders to help them face down attackers, especially in this environment that you've outlined. Not just an increase in nation-state attacks, but also an increase in commercially motivated attackers as well. And so Copilot's very easy to get started with. It's essentially an Azure service, so it's easy to set up, start using, and get going with it today. And we've seen many hundreds of customers do that. And so we're only in the very early phase of this journey, and already it's providing a huge amount of help. So we're really excited to see where it can go from here, and we're really positive on the impact of generative AI, and specifically Microsoft Copilot for Security, to helping defenders.
Thank you. I fully agree with you. As you said, the defenders need all the help that we need, because cybersecurity, in addition to the 8 trillion that it generates, but we see that it gets better, faster, and more efficient. Bigger. If we watched in Microsoft last year, the number of password attacks, the average was 3 billion every month. This year is 30 billion per month, so it's an increase of 10. If we talk about speed, if in the past, when an attacker initiated a phishing attack, it took them a few days to actually steal the personal data, now the median time is 72 seconds. So really the improvement is just incredible. And that's why we need all these tools that generative AI can bring. Another question I want to ask you. And Andrew, we are in Israel, we're in the middle of the war. You're here. Why you're here in the middle of the war when we are under attack? Maybe we can share with us.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Michal. For me, it's very natural to visit Israel. Israel, and specifically in the case of Microsoft, the Israeli R&D Center, is central to the work that we do in security. We have around 1,500 security engineers who are working on all of the Microsoft security products across all of our product lines. I've been in security at Microsoft for around 10 years. And so it remains very natural for me to come to Israel and want to meet our engineering leadership and our developers here face to face to learn what's going on. You know, I was talking to one of my co-workers who traveled with me as well. And when I come to Israel, it's my goal really to learn and act like a sponge and soak everything up and be inspired by the innovation that is being generated here. And take that back to the United States and take that back to our teams. It goes beyond only Microsoft, though. As you know, we have been active here in the ecosystem. And at Microsoft, we like to say that security is a team sport. Given the threat environment that we face locally and globally, it's important that not only different countries or different nation states work together, but also different vendors work together. And we have many hundreds of partners, ISV partners at Microsoft in our Intelligent Security Association. And so for us, the ecosystem of security companies here and startups is critical not only in a local context, but also in a global context. if we are going to face down cybercrime and cyber threats, and if we are going to make the world a safer place for all.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Very well put. If you talked already about the Israeli area, and I also want to relate to something that Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said, which, by the way, we worked together in the same company, we were in the same startup. So I fully believe that Israel becomes stronger out of that, specifically the high tech. I believe that pain is the matter of all innovation. And when you have constraint, when you have pain, you become more innovative. You know, the biggest example is Cyberdome. We created Cyberdome because of the threat. And I believe that the Israeli high tech will come out of this war much more innovative with a lot of solutions. So I'm very optimistic. Okay? Thank you.